description is Margaret is a 60-year-old female who sustained a grade 4 right ankle sprain. Her pain level is currently an 8 out of a 10 with any movement, and she can barely put weight on the leg. She is currently wearing a walking boot and using a front-wheel walker for ambulation. Her goal throughout these sessions are to be able to get back home with her dog. During the acute stage, the functional limitations and impairments are bruising along lateral malleoli, lateral foot, and dorsum of foot, inflammation, decreased range of motion in all directions, weakness present in right ankle and hip muscles, weight bearing as tolerated with walking boot, and an intelligent gait. Here's our plan of care for the acute stage. First, we would instruct the patient on how to properly stabilize the core. So you'll have the patient in a supine position with the legs up, and instruct the patient to tilt their pelvis until they find a neutral position and bring their belly button in. Alright, once they learn that, then we teach them some bed mobility for her to be able to get in and out of her bed properly. So first she sits up, and we also instructed her how to get back into bed from a seated position, using that core stabilization. Alright, now we instructed her on how to properly use her front-wheeled walker. Now we are going to instruct the patient how to do some isometrics to strengthen the ankle everters, inverters, dorsiflexors, and plantar flexors. The patient's going to be kind of off of the table, and you're just going to go ahead and apply pressure to my hand. Alright, good. Now go up. And remember all 4 directions you want to address. To progress this strengthening, you can go ahead and do some multi-angle isometrics. We also want to instruct the patient on how to do some ankle pumps. So the patient is just going to bring their toes up and down and just pump the ankles. Also, to address strengthening of your quads, you want to do quad sets as well. So have the patient seated like this and fire your quads, contract them, and relax. One more time. Okay. And then we also want to address their butt muscles, so the gluteus maximus. Go ahead and squeeze your butt, and then relax. Okay, and that's good. And then we also want to work on some stabilization. Okay, while working on balance exercises, you want to remind the patient that they should use the core stabilization that they learned earlier in the treatment. So she's going to be sitting here, and when she has great balance in this position, she's going to start doing some arm movements, such as diagonals. Then you're going to go ahead and progress the patient to an uneven seated surface. So we're going to put a disc under her butt. So go Alright, and once she has good balance in this position, then you're going to once again go ahead and do the arm movements. Then the last thing that we want to address in this session is start on some light weight shifting to get her to tolerate being on her right ankle. She's going to have stand up, and she can use a plinth or any other thing for support, and she's just going to lightly shift her weight from one ankle to the other.
Here's what a SOAP note would look like for the acute stage. The patient will be given a home exercise plan to do in the privacy of their own home. For this stage, we have chosen to do active assistive range of motion for eversion, inversion, dorsiflexion, and plantar flexion. It's important to tell the patient to do it 8 to 10 times in each direction, 3 sets, 3 times daily. We also chose to do ankle pumps 8 to 10 times, 3 sets, 3 times daily.
Alright, now that it's been a couple of weeks since the initial injury, we've entered the subacute stage. And in this stage, when we see the patient, they would present with an intelligent gait pattern, weight bearing is tolerated with their walking boot, some decreased range of motion in all directions for their ankle, and some muscle weakness in the right ankle, hip, and knee. In the subacute stage, our plan of care is as follows. We want to educate the patient on their core stabilization, their body mechanics, and their posture. We want to be stretching the ankle, the inverters, everters, dorsiflexors, and plantar flexors. We also want to be strengthening the ankle with active range of motion using the tilt board, the TheraBand, and closed chain exercises for all of the motions of the ankle. And then finally, in this stage, we want to be doing stabilization. We are going to be doing that with the parallel bars, in standing and changing the base of support, and then using diagonals. So, for the first thing what we're going to do is we are going to remind the patient to, whenever we're doing an exercise, we want to use that same core stabilization that they learned before. And so they find a neutral pelvis, and then suck in their stomach. And then for stretching, we are going to instruct them in a self-stretch. So what we would have them do is bring their right ankle over their left knee. And what we want them to do is just move their ankle in all those motions, making sure to stretch. Alright, good. So the next thing we're going to do after they've done all their stretching is we're going to get them with a tilt board. Basically what we're going to have them do is we're going to have them put their right ankle on the tilt board, and they're just going to be using their ankle, moving in all those same directions, controlling that tilt board. Good. And then after they've strengthened with the tilt board, we want to strengthen their ankle also with the TheraBand. Now that we've got the TheraBand, we're going to give it to the patient, and what they're going to do is they're going to work on strengthening their ankle in all directions, using that TheraBand, providing that resistance. This is going to be an exercise. These exercises are going to be used in their home exercise program, so it's very important that they learn how to do them themselves. Okay, so now that we've done some strengthening with the TheraBand and open chain exercises, we're going to work on some closed chain exercises. In order to do this, we're going to put the patient in the parallel bars, and they're going to hold on with two hands, and they're going to be doing some heel raises. And then they're going to be doing some toe raises. And then over time, as they're comfortable, they can progress themselves to using two hands to hold on, one hand, and no hands. Doing these exercises will address strengthening of the plantar flexors and the dorsiflexors. In order to address the inverters and everters, we're going to have the patient stand in a tandem stance. They can hold on to the bars or any stable surfaces they see fit and feel comfortable. At this point, we're going to have them be standing this way, and I'm just going to add some perturbations. They're going to work to hold on. All right, good. And then once they've done all these strengthening exercises, we're going to move right on to stabilization. And in this case, what we're going to have them do is we're going to have them standing in a wide base of support. And they're going to hold on and make sure that they can stand and hold there for a while. And then eventually over time, they're going to progress to one hand, no hands, and then eventually they're going to go on to some arm movements. Once the patient feels comfortable doing this, we're going to narrow that base of support, so they'll put their feet together. They'll go back to that holding on with two hands. They'll progress to one hand when they're comfortable, and then no hands. And then they can do some arm movements again. And then our final stabilization exercise that we're going to do is we're going to get this patient walking in the parallel bars without their walker, because that is our end goal. So what we're going to do is we're going to have the patient stand with both hands hanging on. I'll be back here just in case. And they're just going to do some slow walking. And then whenever they feel comfortable, they're going to progress to holding on with just one hand and doing that same slow walking. And then finally, when they feel comfortable after that, they're going to go with no hands on the parallel bars, and they're just going to do some slow walking. And then over time, I'll take my hand away. After we progress the patient to this point in stabilization, this would be the end of our subacute stage. So we would be giving our patient a home exercise program and moving on to the next stage at the next session. So here's a look at what our SOAP note would look like for the subacute stage. For the home exercise plan for this patient at this stage, we would want them to be doing those self-stretch exercises for the everters, inverters, dorsiflexors, and plantar flexors. They would want to be holding these stretches for 30 seconds. They'd want to repeat them 3 to 5 times, and then 2 to 3 times daily. They'd also want to be repeating the TheraBand exercises for strengthening for the eversion, inversion, dorsiflexor, and plantar flexion. They would want to be doing those heel raises and toe raises, and all of these strengthening exercises would want to be done 8 to 12 times in 2 to 3 sets and 2 times daily.
So now that we're in the chronic stage, our functional limitations and impairments for our patient are going to be impaired balance, muscle weakness in ankle, hip, and knee, impaired stability, and limited cardiovascular endurance. And then this is our plan of care for the chronic stage. We're going to have the patient continue stretching like the stretches she did in the past couple stages. And then we're going to talk about injury prevention and safety, basically wearing a brace and higher boots when she's walking on unstable surfaces such as grass. So we're going to do some strengthening exercises with our patient now. We're going to start with step-ups. This will be for plantar flexion. From there, we're going to progress to, or move on to rather, some side-to-side walking. And that'll be for eversion. And then from there, we're going to do some heel walking for some dorsiflexion, holding on as needed. And then for inversion, we're going to do some single leg stance in the parallel bars with perturbations and holding on as needed. And then for stabilization, we're going to do a tug of war exercise. So she's going to hold on to the gait belt like she's holding on to her dog. And I'm just going to pull in different directions to see how she balances. Work on that core, have her keeping this core stability, working her in those different directions.
So here's a look at our SOAP note for the chronic stage. For our home exercise program for the patient, we're going to have her do step-ups on stairs at home, sidestepping on uneven surfaces such as grass, and do these exercises 8 to 10 times, 2 sets, and 2 times daily. We'll also have her walking around the house outside on the grass and start with 3 to 5 minutes and gradually increase as her endurance increases.